Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to save our music for our 10 o'clock class. And I'm so thrilled to see so many people joining us for I keep trying to come up with a name for this. I really do not like remedial. That is really not what I'm going for here.
Wait a minute, I have a point. I was the first one, I think, to say remedial. And before I did, I looked it up in the dictionary because, of course, it has that negative connotation. So remedial says affording remedy and intended to correct or improve one's skill in a specified field.
So, okay, it's an excellent word, but I don't want to use it because it does have connotation. So
I'm suggesting extended.
How about extra credit?
Extended.
Extra credit, those are good. The other one I thought we could call it is Kita Aleph, which means the first class.
Oh.
So, and since if you don't know Hebrew, you don't have any necessary connection. Okay, so we're going to call it the extended extra Kita Aleph, okay? Whatever this is. So welcome, everybody. And I'm happy to do this every Monday morning for 45 minutes until people, if you don't just drop off, so we just dribble down. If it's not meeting your needs or not something you're interested in, let me know and let's see if we're doing the right thing. We don't need to continue, so you don't need to take care of my ego or anything like that. We want this to be a successful help for people and a place where I want to encourage people that any question, anything is totally okay. I'm going to assume zero knowledge. And honestly, if you've been in the class for 10 weeks, you've probably picked up more than you think you have. But I'm going to assume zero knowledge. And I'm going to start by asking, and I have a pad and paper. See, I got a pad and paper here. And I'm going to ask if you have questions or there are things, you don't even have a question, but there's an area you just don't understand or you heard a word used that you would love more explanation of. I'm not going to respond to each one if you have thoughts. I have something prepared to teach today, but I want to hear, first of all, what's on your minds. And I'm just going to make a list. And
right, I'm monitoring participants to see who raises their hand.
You could write it in the chat also if you don't feel like speaking, but let's just hear what's on your mind, what you would like more of. I'm not going to respond right now. I'm going to write them all down though.
Stephen.
Hello, good morning. My question is the actual word Lord in so much of the English translation. And the reason I say it is it's not so much personal attachment to it because I can define it as spiritual or something bigger than myself. But when I've shared the psalm with other people, they get very caught up in that word.
Yes.
And it like turns them off. Like right away, they're like, oh, you've become like a religious freak. And I'm like, just substitute the word Lord with whatever else you want. But I guess my question is, how do you get past that?
Yep. Okay. So language of God is
Right.
Just language of God. Okay. I'm putting that down. Thank you.
Catherine Keenan.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Catherine.
I'm just trying to figure out what this whole psalm thing is about. And I read Ellen Davis's explanation, and I'm following along in
Hold on.
this.
Whose explanation? I'm sorry. I'm not sure I'm familiar with.
Ellen Davis.
Ellen
Can
Davis.
you send that out?
Mm-hmm.
Do I have the right name? Ellen F. Davis. Why
Okay.
the psalm now? I think it was one of the things we sent out. And then I also have this Bible called The Message, which Rabbi Rose talked about at the end of his, when he was in the class.
Christian, right? Mm-hmm.
Right, and it's a very contemporary translation by a scholar who translated it from what he called the Old Testament from Hebrew and the New Testament from Greek. So he says here, let's see. The Psalms in Hebrew are earthy and rough. They are not genteel. They are not the prayers of nice people couched in cultural language. And his interpretations are really kind of raw and right in your face. And it was a very striking interpretation when it was released. I think it was 2002, something like that. So what I'm struck by is that many of the personal Psalms are just as kind of graphic. And I guess my question is, I'm not even sure what my question is. It's like Ellen Davis says, the Psalms are supposed to move us from distress and lament in the direction of trust, hope, and praise. Okay. So I'm not exactly getting that from the first 6 Psalms. I'm wondering, what happens in the next 150, the remaining Psalms? I mean, I'm now quite really fascinated by this. And the beginning of this, like Psalm 6, in this translation, he says, this is Eugene Peterson from The Message. Please, God, no more yelling, no more trips to the woodshed. Treat me nice for a change. I'm so starved for affection. Can't you see I'm black and blue, beat up badly in bones and soul? God, how long will it take for you to let up? So I'm kind of like trying to understand that his interpretation, he's trying to base it on the Hebrew that he translated, that it was a rough kind of translation according to his introduction. So I'm wondering, what is this tradition? I'm just trying to work my way through what this is all about, of writing personal Psalms, of, okay, we see a translation, and then is it expressing our pain before God? Is it a chance to permission to talk to God in a certain way? I'm sorry for my.
Yeah. No, that's very, very. It's very direct and clear, actually, to me. Okay, I got it. And this question of do the Psalms actually move us from pain to comfort is a big question. And how does that happen? And for the psalmist, I think it does. The question is, does it work for us? So fantastic question. Thank you.
Ellen Poster.
Yeah, so my questions always are much more technical. I'm trying to understand the Hebrew, and so I just took one phrase, even that you spend some time with on Psalm 6, the verse 2. So when it's got al ba'afra tochi cheni, so the al means negative, right? And but then
verse 6, I mean Psalm 6 verse 2. Right.
Right.
Yes. Al means negative, like don't.
Right. So you have to add not just a no, but do not, right? You have to add like a verb to it. Okay. And then the last word, tohecha, would be rebuke, right? But so how come it's tochi cheni? I didn't understand what was going on with that word.
Okay, good. So suffixes, how suffixes work in Hebrew, because the ni at the end means me. So don't rebuke me. It's all in one word. Rebuke me is one word. But we'll get to so Hebrew suffixes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
So Rabbi, we have a few in chat here. Cindy asked, did Psalms originate as prayers written down? Which has a lot in that question. I guess, were they always used as prayers, and were they written down, or was there an oral tradition of them before they were written down? And okay. Donna Gray says, why do people stick with the Old English of the King James Bible when they recite Psalms? For instance, he leadeth me to green pastures. Why do we are attracted to this old-fashioned translation? Let's see. And then we have Allison with her hand up.
Right. So my question is, or frustration, is with, I see the Psalms so similar, and it's hard for me to distinguish one from the next. And what, I forgot the other gentleman who was talking about Lord and God. It's so difficult. Sorry,
That was
Steve.
Stephen. Mhm.
It's so different. I sort of am blocked when I hear everyone, as much as I'm blown away by what people write, and I get it from their writings. I cannot speak to the universe. I just find that such an alien calling out. And so that's it. It's just seeing the repetitiveness and still being really frustrated with trying to distinguish one from the next and the sameness.
Okay, that's
Great, thank you. Got it?
Donna Gray.
So, hi, everybody. I attended a memorial service on Zoom on Saturday morning, and they read Psalm 23, and it was read with that Old English that seems to be, people seem to not want to let go of that. I mean, do people think that that makes it somehow more holy, or, by using the Old English? I don't really get it.
Okay.
Okay, got it.
Let's see. And then Robin says, do I understand correctly that the Psalms are saying that redemption is found through prayer? Okay.
Mhm.
And that is it. No one else has their hand up, and that's what we have in chat. So that might be a little bit to get you going.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So I think this is going to be a fantastic group and gathering, and I really appreciate it. But I'm going to start even more basic than some of your questions with some of the things that I think I realize I make some assumptions that people know, and I don't think we need to start there, which is, where do the Psalms fit into the Jewish Bible? What are the Psalms? Where do we understand them to be in our canon? So we're going to start by understanding, first of all, what is the Bible itself? What is the Bible? When I use the word Bible, what do we mean by it? And I don't mean literally, which Harold gave us. Biblio means book. Is that right, Harold?
Biblion is book, biblia is books, plural in Greek.
So quite literally means books. Okay, that's what we mean when the word is in Greek. But let's talk a little bit. Donna just wrote, it's a book for a photo op. Right, yeah, we know about that, huh? Can you believe that was just 1 week ago today? Isn't that so? So since it is often misused, so let's talk about what is the Bible, what's the Hebrew Bible, what is the Old Testament, and where do the Psalms fit in? So let's talk about that big structure before we jump down to the Psalms. So the Bible is a Greek word. It's not a Jewish word in particular, although it's become totally acceptable for Jews to use. The traditional Jewish word was mikra, which is the word from the word to read. So likro, to read, literally means reading or that which is read. And that's the original word that we would see for the Bible in Jewish texts. In the medieval period, the acronym of Tanakh, which in Hebrew is 3 letters. Torah is the T for Torah, means the 5 books of Moses. The N is for Nevi'im, or for prophets, and the KH is for Ketuvim, or writings. So that phrase, although that's the common one we use now, didn't really appear to the medieval period, but Tanakh means the Hebrew or Jewish Bible. As Jews, if we're using English words, to say it's the Hebrew Bible or the Jewish Bible are both acceptable references to it. Now we know that Christianity has a Bible too, of course, and their Bible has 2 big parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's not just that the words are different and that Jews should not use the word Old Testament because it means old and therefore replaced by Christian, which means new. That's the philosophical religious reason. But actually, when a Christian talks about the Old Testament, it is a different book than the Jewish or Hebrew Bible. And within Christianity, the Bibles, the Protestant Bible is different than the Catholic Bible, which is different than the Orthodox churches, the Eastern Orthodox churches. And this is a very interesting subject. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it. Just, I want the emphasis to be, the Old Testament and the Jewish Bible are not the same thing. It's not just that it's different words. That's a very important thing to understand. So the Protestant Old Testament has 39 books in it. The Catholic Old Testament has 47, although there are a couple of different Catholic versions. I'm simplifying this, super simplified. If you really started to study this, you'll see there's even more complicated variation. But for the purpose of the big, big, big picture, some Protestants, Lutherans, I think, are a little different, but the big picture. Now, how many books are in the Hebrew or Jewish Bible? Our Bible has 24 books in it. Now, part of the reason that the number is different is that we count them differently. And the other way that our Bible, or when I say our, I know not all of us in this class are Jewish, but another way that the Jewish or Hebrew Bible differs from the Christian Old Testament is that the order of the books are different. So the number is different and the order is different. And by the way, the Catholic and the Protestant Bible also is in a different order and understood quite differently. So that's all to understand. There is, when somebody uses the word Bible, there's a lot of different. I'm going to stop right there and see if there are any questions about that, because this is a super basic foundation I want everybody to understand. And let's take it slowly and see if that makes sense. Any questions are fine. If you want me to repeat something, it's fine, okay? Either
Shep.
in the chat or raise your hand.
Shep had a question.
So I kind of knew this, but so what books are we missing? Is this the Apocrypha that the Catholics have?
We'll get to that. I'll show. I have a list a little bit.
24.
What?
Why do we only have?
Well, as I said, the reason we have 24, and for instance, the Protestants have 39, it's a little bit about the counting, and you'll see that in a moment. But it's also, the Catholics add a lot of other books, which is why they get up to 47. But yes, some of it is there are different books.
And what about the
most important thing for us as Jews to remember, there are 24 books in the whole Jewish Bible. And then we're gonna start to look at what they are to understand where the Psalms fit into that. The Psalms, in other words, the book of Tehillim is one of 24 books that make up the Jewish canon that we call the Tanakh, or the Bible, the Jewish Bible.
I have a question in chat, just simply, what are the writings? What is included in the
We're
writings?
gonna get up to that. I'm gonna break it all down. I just wanted people to see that.
Donna Gray has her hand up.
I've already forgotten everything you said about what the Tanakh stands for.
Okay.
Could you please write it down so I can very slowly read it and reread it and maybe take it in?
I've actually written all this down, and we're going to go to that. If we're ready, I'll go to that.
Thank you very much. But I somehow it just does not penetrate here.
Okay. Nothing more in chat or hands. Maybe go back then to the.
Okay, let's go back to the handout, or whatever we call this when it's done on a screen. Okay, so how do we, what are these 24 books? The 24 books are divided into 3 big sections. The first section is Torah. Oh, I put Chumash first, but it's Torah. Go back up, Harold, farther, right here. So 3 big sections, Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. I swear Torah should really be first there. So there are 3 different ways to refer to, thank you, Harold. Yeah, so you see the Tanakh is the Taf of Torah, the Nun of Nevi'im, and the K of Ketuvim. Donna, do you see that now? Those 3, yeah, thank you, perfect, Harold. Oh, so good. So that is how, and Tanakh is how we pronounce it with, so Tanakh is those 3 sections. The first section also has different ways to refer to that first section, Torah. Now, this is one of those things that's very confusing. Torah could just mean that first section. Torah could mean the entire 3 sections, and Torah could mean the written and the oral tradition. So Torah can also mean kind of a bigger, but the most narrow definition of Torah are the first 5 books of Moses, which also can be called Chumash, which means 5, because there are 5 books in this section, or Pentateuch, because of the Penta meaning 5. So if you hear these 3 words, they're interchangeable for 5 books of Moses. The second big section is Nevi'im, which are the prophets. And the third big section are the writings, which is kind of like where everything else goes that doesn't fit that easily. It's kind of a little bit of a dumping ground for the things don't fit so well. All right, let's go down and see how these divide up even further. So section 1, Torah. We should write Torah up there to be more precise. So the Torah, which is the Tuf of has 5 books in it, 5 books of Moses, Pentateuch. And those 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy in English, or Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bamidbar, and Devarim in Hebrew. Now these 5, thank you, Harold. I did this really quickly this morning. So these 5 books are what we call what we read from every Shabbat morning. And all these 5 books are on the big parchment that we unroll when we hold up the Torah, when we do Shabbos morning Torah reading, when we do any Torah reading. These are the 5 books we read. And
Numbers is Midbar, or
Midbar is Numbers.
Okay, good, okay.
And by the way, there's a whole question about how did the English names come to be? They're mostly from, I guess, the Greek, right, Harold? Or is that?
Yes. Exodus, Genesis is on becoming. Exodus is the road out. Leviticus is regarding priestly matters. Deuteronomy is the second law or the repetition of the law. With the book that we call Numbers is actually arithmoi, which is numbers in Greek, but somehow that didn't flip over. So
Yeah.
they went from Greek to Latinate to English, but with the exception of Numbers.
Right. So these are the Hebrew, and these are the Hebrew names that Harold has in the parentheses. So, but when you hear about Torah reading or learning to read the Torah for a bar bat mitzvah, this is what people are reading from. Starts with the Genesis, starts with the and at Simchat Torah, when we dance around the scrolls, those scrolls only have these 5 books in them. That's it. Starting with the creation of the world and ending with the Jews are just about to get into the promised land, but they never make it, and we go back to the beginning again. So if you would imagine all of these, sometimes when I teach this and I can draw, and maybe I'll even draw this for next week, imagine this to be concentric circles. The 5 books of Moses is the center of all the circles. The next circle is the prophets, Nevi'im, and then the third circle is Ketuvim. And that concentric circle image becomes important as we go out to the oral law. Okay, any questions about this? Everybody understand what the 5 books of Moses are, or at least you have a picture? Donna, does this help seeing those the words? I want to make sure Donna got it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it does. You know, when on Yom Kippur, when Lisa Kartzman is doing the shofar. I mean, it's not Lisa. Is it Lisa Kartzman? Janet Pavlov.
Janet Pavlov.
Janet Pavlov.
All
Okay.
lesbians look alike.
Janet Pavlov.
Ain't that the truth?
Sorry. So, you know, when you're yelling out or you're singing out, chanting out what she should say, it sounds like Devarim.
It sounds like what?
Devarim.
No, it's Shvarim with a shin.
Shvarim.
Very good, but it is plural where it's a grammatical form that's the exact same form. So that's very good, but Shvarim with a shin.
Shvarim.
Shvarim, which means broken up. That's when the notes are very, very staccato, because Shvarim means broken up.
You know, learning Hebrew, baby talk Hebrew I have.
So by the way, I want to let everybody know we are teaching 3 levels of Hebrew this summer that'll be meeting twice a week each, beginning with learning the alphabet. For those of you who would like to learn the alphabet, it's going to be an 8-week session, 2 times a week. And for those of you who know the alphabet but want to learn a little basic biblical and prayer book Hebrew, we're doing that level. If like you can read but you cannot understand a single word, that level would be for you. And then there's going to be a 3rd level if you're a little bit beyond that. So it's going to be twice a week, each of those levels, for those of you who would like to really focus on issues like prefixes and suffixes, although I'll do a little bit more of that. But for those of you who are interested in one day having an adult bar bat mitzvah, we skip a year every year. So this year we won't be teaching, but learning Hebrew is the most important preparation for that process. So if you're interested in starting the bar bat mitzvah program in a year, focus on learning Hebrew now. You'll be in great shape. That's an important way. Okay.
Ellen.
Ellen.
Thanks. So could you just put that up again where it has Genesis, Exodus?
Yes. Okay.
And Harold will share this with everybody, so you'll be able to print this out and have this document, which is a very simple. Yep.
So I know a few of them. Breshit, I think, is beginning, and Bamidbar in the wilderness, Devarim words. But what is Shmot and Vayikra?
Shmot means names, because it starts, mostly the Hebrew names for each of these books, not very complicated, usually comes from the first sentence of the book, which is true, by the way, in a lot of ancient book references. You know, they didn't come up with fancy titles. They would come up with something that would come from the beginning. So Bereshit is the first word of the book. Shemot is the second word, says Eile Shemot. Vayikra, which means God will call, is just from and Bamidbar is in the desert, and Devarim are also the words. The Greek titles are actually more thematically referential to the book than the Hebrew ones. In some ways, the Hebrew ones are simply words from the first verse.
But Vayikra means, what does Vayikra mean?
Vayikra means, well, we get into that Vav Hayipuch thing, but Vayikra means God called or he called. It's just from the beginning of the book. But that's why the book Leviticus in the Greek word is actually more identifiable about some of the themes of the book. Otherwise, they're all words from the beginning of the book. Excellent question. So if the first section was the 5 books of Moses, which is the Torah of Tanakh, the second section is Nevi'im, the Nun, for Tanakh, the Nun. And Nevi'im or Navi mean, a Navi is a prophet, and Nevi'im is the plural for prophets. There are 8 books in this section, and some of these names should be very famous to you. It's where we read the Haftarah. The second reading every Shabbat morning and every holiday morning is from this section of the Bible. So if the first reading is from the 5 books of Moses, the reading that we read afterwards, the Haftorah, some of us call it, or Haftarah, or Haftorah, is all from the books of the prophets. And these books of the prophets are Joshua, which is more historically narrative and happens right after the Israelites get into the promised land. The others, some of them, especially Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Joshua, Samuel, and Kings, are very narrative with a lot of history. And Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, while they have some history in them, are a lot of sermons yelling at the people about how bad they are and how much they need to repent. And then the 12 minor prophets called Trei Asar, which as the book, I didn't actually list them, maybe I should have done that, are prophets like Amos and Hosea, are what we call the 12 minor prophets. We should get the list for them so you'll see all of them. Those prophets, so for instance, for the Protestants, they don't consider this one book. They consider each of those minor prophets their own book, which is one of the reasons they count the books differently. So these, while they're called minor prophets, it doesn't mean minor for Jews as an insignificant or less important. It means the books are smaller. So when people, so that's why in Hebrew we call it the Trei Asar. It just means the 12. Trei Asar means 12. And so the problem with the minor prophets reference in English is it makes it sound like they're insignificant. They're not. They're very important. Think about it. Amos, all of the very, very important. So I should have, maybe when we do this, I'll put before we send it out, we'll list all 12. The third big section of the Jewish Bible are the Ketuvim, the Cha, the K of the Tanakh. And there are 11 books in this. And the first book of this section is our book, the Sefer Tehillim, the book of Psalms. So you could see where Psalms exist. And let's look at the other books in this section: Proverbs, Job, Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah. And we end the Jewish Bible with the book of Chronicles. There are Chronicles 1 and Chronicles 2, but it's one book. So that's the overview of the Jewish Bible. Let's look at the Christian Bible just so you can see a little bit. I'm not an expert at all in the Christian Bible, but you can see this will be the classic. This is a classic Protestant listing of the Bible, of the Christian Bible. And you could see one of the things that you'll see different. Look at book 8, Ruth, and then Ruth is up there also, but you'll see down in the Psalms comes after Job and after Esther and after Nehemiah and after Ezra. And you see that the Christian Bible ends with the book, the Old Testament ends with the book of Micah. Oh, there you can see all the minor prophets are right there. So Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. So to understand why Christians made this order different, you have to look at the end of the book of Malachi. Do I have it with me? Oh, I should get that. Because they see that as a prophecy leading to Jesus. So they have a theological reason they want to end with Malachi so that they could go right into Jesus. I don't have it with my Chumash is in the other room. I thought I had it here.
I can find it and pull it up if you need it.
Yeah, my Chumash is in the other room. I thought I had brought it here last week, but I guess I cleaned it out. Okay, so they do that for a very specific reason. They want to make sure that the Old Testament ends with what they see as a revelation of the New Testament. If you go down one more step, you'll see some of the books that the Catholics add to their Christian Bible. And these are called the Apocrypha. And we are very grateful that the Christians have preserved some of these books, because look, there's the 1 Maccabees and 2 Maccabees, which is where we even know the Hanukkah story from. And that's only we know it really because the Christians have preserved those books. The Apocrypha, that word that you see on the top of this, are a selection of books that we Jews also study, but they're not part of the canon of the Jewish Bible. And they're not considered to be at the same level of sacred text for Jews. They're very important to study, to know a lot about that world. And most of them happen historically a little bit later than when the Jewish Bible kind of closed shop or ended their collection. All right, so let's stop there. Again, I'm not an expert on Christianity, but it's important to see and to understand and to see that for us, the book of Psalms starts. I'm going to go get my Chumash. Hold on, I'll be right back. So this is my Tanakh that I carry with me all the time when I'm studying, since I first got it in 1975. And the reason it's good to have the same book that you study all the time, because I end up remembering where on the page different things are, because I've been using the same, and it's very handy. There's a word, I think it's hapex legomenon. Is that the right word?
Hapax, it means read or seen only one time in the text. And it's generally a word that we don't know what it means because it's only there once.
Okay, so I'm going to get, and then this is so let's just look at the end of, so I'm going to show you what a Christian Bible ends with in order to, let's see, are there other questions? Well,
I have something else I'd like to share while we're doing this. Hold on, let me get this open if I can. When we're talking about the reason the books are named, this is the very first column of the beginning of the Torah, which is the beginning of Genesis. And here you have the Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. So that is why this book is called Bereshit. And just for the very first book, the very first letter, is the bet which is larger. And if I were to go through, this is the Torah we actually read at CBST. These are pictures that I took with Julia Ostrov several years ago. We use these for services. But if I were to go through the books, you would see that either the first word or the first word that isn't, if, and, but, or that is the word that is used to name the book. Let me see here what we might have.
Let's see if there are other questions, and I'll.
Questions? All right, hold on.
And let me know, was this helpful to kind of get a.
Sue raised her hand.
Am I unmuted?
Sue Rosansky, yes, you're good.
Yeah, hi. Thank you.
Hi, Sue. Good morning.
Good morning. Harold, could you put back up the list of the top list of the Christian Bible?
Yes.
Because I had a question about Genesis, and then there was like, what? Yeah, top. Yeah, okay. So, but they use Genesis, right? So they study both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Is that?
Remember, Old Testament is a Christian word. So when Old Testament, New Testament, those two books together make up the Christian Bible.
So I'm just trying to, there's no.
Yes, so for them, the 5 books of Moses, all those books, for Christians, all of those books are sacred texts. But because Jesus has arrived and the New Testament replaces the Old Testament, but they for sure study the Old Testament.
So
some more than others. Some Christian traditions are much more rooted in the study of the Old Testament than others. And that's a fascinating topic, which I know a little bit about. But yes, the Old Testament and New Testament are both part of the Christian Bible.
Okay, so there's no relationship between Genesis and Matthew other than each one is the first book of that text. Okay, that's just
right. They're printed in that structure.
Yeah,
No. Okay. But there is, because Malachi ends with the famous, Elijah's going to come, and at the end of days, the children will turn their hearts to the. It's like a prophecy of the end of times. For Christians, that flows beautifully into the New Testament. But no, they're not supposed to be parallel at all. It's just 2 columns which show Old Testament, New Testament together. They make the Christian Bible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's just what confused me.
Yeah. Good question. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Ask any questions if you just say help, I didn't understand that, go over it again. That's good too.
So Rabbi, there's a very good question here. You held up your copy of the Tanakh, not the Chumash. And this is, am I correct that this is the JPS version? No,
this is only in Hebrew.
Okay.
My personal one is only in Hebrew.
So the question I believe we have here is that if someone does not have a translation, what they should get. And I would start by saying that, and I will put the JPS, the Jewish Publication Society, seems to be pretty much the standard, and you can get it with Hebrew and English, which is what we've shared several times here.
Yes.
That text is also used in the Jewish Study Bible, which is over 2,000 pages. It has it's only the English, but it has fantastic notes and essays, and it's also used in other places. Even the so those are 2 that seem to be quite common. Would you comment on that?
I would totally agree with that, JPS, but you just have to keep in mind what we've been talking over and over and over again. Translation is interpretation, and you really have to study, and just take all translation is interpretation, including my own. If I open this up and try and understand what it's saying, it's an interpretation. So, but yes, I would recommend if you wanted a basic, excellent Jewish translation, JPS is the best.
Okay, and I will put this will be going out in the notes. And if you could just repeat, we had a question. So the Tanakh and the Chumash are not the same thing.
No. So the Tanakh is all 3 together. Torah for the Ta, Nevi'im for the Na, and Cha for the Ketuvim. So Torah, prophets, and writings together make up the Tanakh, which is the 3 together. I also have a small version, a Hebrew word version, which is Hebrew and English. But you know what? Who could read it? It's so tiny. But this is the Tanakh. So you see it says the Holy Scriptures, but then in the Hebrew letters, the Taf, the Nun, and the Chaf, which means Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim. And I use this as a reference book. Obviously, it's not a place I do deep study because it doesn't have any commentaries. It doesn't have, it's just the basic 24 books. Remember, 24 books in the Jewish Bible.
Cindy, I see you raising your hand. I'm just going to ask, I'm going to recognize you, but if you can raise your hand by using raise hand in participants, it's better because I only see one screen of people and it means that I wouldn't see anyone raising their hand on the second page. So Cindy, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, sorry. My question, so the New Testament, would those be writings after Christ? Is that?
So yes, the New Testament, and again, I am not an expert. I have taken courses in the New Testament. I've read the New Testament, but I am not a scholar. The New Testament begins with the Gospels, the 4 Gospels. The Gospels start being written about 100 years after Jesus. None of them are contemporaneous with Jesus's life.
Right.
Some of them we think are written down about, I think, and if anybody knows differently, correct me, about 100 years after Jesus actually lived, we start to have them. Is that correct? Somewhere around there.
It might be like 70 to 150.
Okay. So,
Yes.
but they're all of the New Testament parts of the Christian Bible are post Jesus. Absolutely.
So we have a question here about what gets read in services, and the question about the entire Torah being read traditionally, but in our liberal service we read a third, and then a portion.
So let me explain that. So
Okay.
the tradition is that there's a year. Wow, there are a lot of sirens here. The tradition is that the 5 books of Moses are read in a cycle from Simchat Torah to Simchat Torah, that we start and end the reading of the cycle, not on Rosh Hashanah, but we start and end on, or we end and start on Simchat Torah. Now, there are 2 traditions, both, by the way, are ancient. One is to read the entire 5 books of Moses in 1 year, and one is to read the entire 5 books of Moses in 3-year cycle, with each weekly section being divided up into thirds. So we read a third of the entire book all year, and then we do it. That triennial cycle is also from the Talmud, so it's not a recent idea, but it makes it a shorter reading, because for to do the entire book in 1 year makes some of the readings very long. Some of the parshiot are very long. So that's what we read. And at CBST, we do both, because CBST is who we are. Our liberal minion reads the triennial cycle. So every 3 years, every year we complete a full going through every single section, but we only do a third of it. And so it takes us 3 years to do all 3 sections in each. So does everybody understand that? It's not like we do only the first third, second third, final third. We do 1/3 of each section. So we go through the whole Chumash or Torah. And in our TEM, our traditional egalitarian minion, which meets once a month, we read the full reading in that. So CBST being who we are, we have a little bit of everything. Is that clear to folks?
And then when we read from Nevi'im, because we talked about part of prophets being Haftarah, but Ruth and Echa.
So for the Ketuvim, for the 5 Megillot, which are Ruth, the book of Ruth, we read at Shavuot. The book of Ecclesiastes, we read on Sukkot. The book of Lamentations, we read on Tisha B'Av. The book for Esther, we read the book of, for Purim, we read the book of Esther. And did I miss any? There are 5. Did I do all 5?
Shir HaShirim, did you get Shir
HaShirim? Good. Song of Songs, we read on Passover. So those 5 from the Ketuvim, from writings, we read on 5 different holidays. And for the rest of the year, we read from the prophets for the Haftarot. The other books are not read in completion as part of the Torah reading or part of the holidays. As I said, there are traditions around, for instance, the book of Psalms to be read on on Shavuot and to be read liturgically, but it's not affiliated with any single holiday. And that's true of a lot of the writings, like the book of Job or the book of Proverbs. We don't read them in a standard way.
So a couple of things. It's 9:45, so we're going to be welcoming people as they come, and then at 10 we'll keep this going for another 15 minutes, correct? And then we'll switch over to the class.
Yeah, well, if people come in, maybe we'll just go over into schmoozing. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
Should we end this and just?
So what I think, a couple of things. One is there are a lot of hands still up in questions. If people can write down their questions for the rabbi and email them to rabbi@cbst.org.
Put them in the chat because Babette will print out.
So put your questions in the chat.
Put them in the chat.
Right, and we save the chat and we share the chat. So there are 4 hands up now. Maybe you would like to do that. The other thing is,
yeah, let's take a couple more questions now and then, but write anything in the chat and we will preserve the chat. So I'll come back to those questions.
Okay, there are
let's
nearly
take more now.
Okay, there are nearly 50 people here, and we've seen the same hands from a same small group. Is there anyone here who feels like they're so lost, or they haven't asked a question, haven't put anything in the chat, but they really do have a question? Is there anyone who has not yet participated by asking a question who would like to be recognized to ask their question? I'm looking for a name that I may not have heard before. Let's see. Not at this point. So we will go back to Allison, who has another question for us. Allison.
Yes.
You're muted, Allison.
I don't know if it's another question.
Yep.
I'm still,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's another question or I'm still confused about the 24 books.
Okay, ask.
And so the Bible is not what we read. The Bible is not part of the Torah. The Torah is part of the Bible.
So the word Bible gets used in a lot of different ways. It's so Bible, yes, the Torah and Bible are the same. Torah is a Hebrew word. Bible is a Greek word that's now an English word. So you could say that Bible and Torah are the same word. Okay? Torah can mean the entire Bible. This is where it gets confusing. Or it can mean just the 5 books of Moses. But Torah and Bible, you can kind of think of as the same word. But Torah gets used then in other ways. I know it's not as neat as we would love it to be, but that's the way it is.
So then Tanakh and Bible are the same word.
Tanakh? Yes,
Tanakh.
Bible can mean a lot of different things because as it gets used by people, but Tanakh and Bible refer to the same thing. But I would like to say Jewish Bible or Hebrew Bible, just to be clear, because people, when they talk about,
So then the Tanakh, so then the Torah, I'm sorry. The Torah is.
Allison, I'm going to share this, and I'm going to put some links and Wikipedia. If you want to read it, it is very confusing. If you want to go to the Wikipedia articles and just read through them carefully and bring out a book.
Yes, Torah can mean, Torah means Bible. Torah can mean the 5 books of Moses or the entire Bible.
But when we talk about the Tanakh, then is that just the 5 books of Moses that we read?
Tanakh means all 3 sections, the entire 24 books. Torah can mean just the 5 books or all 24 books.
So my
To
last
make it even worse, Torah can also mean Gemara and Mishnah, and so that's what it makes it really. But yes, Torah can mean just the 5 books of Moses or all 24 books.
So my final, so then the Nevi'im
Torah
and
means teaching. Nevi'im what, Allison?
so the other 2 sections of the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim,
Yes.
are those also part of what we read out of the Torah?
No, they're not the 5 books of Moses, so they're not part from the scroll that you see in Shul.
Okay.
The Nevi'im and Ketuvim are not in the scroll. That's why I said there's kind of a concentric circle, that the 5 books of Moses have particular power, and then the concentric circles, all 3 are part of the Jewish Bible. All 3 are part of the Jewish Bible or Tanakh.
Okay, got it.
So here I'm carrying, this is the Jewish Bible, and this has all 3 sections. But the scroll that you see in a synagogue only includes a third of this.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Thank you.
And all of the scrolls are the same. When you see 5 scrolls, I used to think, oh, one of them must be this. You read from one, the other. You can have 20 scrolls, but they're all just the 5 books of Moses. And when Rabbi Moskowitz says Torah, which is how he says Torah, he's often thinking of the entirety of Jewish knowledge, not just those 5 books. And sometimes after a teaching, we'll say to someone, thank you for sharing your own Torah, which can be not textually based at all. It can be a beautiful drash, or someone's truth can be called their teaching or their Torah.
The word Torah itself means teaching.
And it's related to the words for teacher and parent as well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Donna, you've had your hand must be tired. You've had it up now for about 10 minutes. Did you have another question? Donna.
So are the prophets called prophets because there was real prophecy? And you know, just to add to that question, I'm realizing how very little I know about the Bible. And I would appreciate, you know, an explication of all of these books because I know nothing. Totally ignorant.
Well, it's a lifetime of study, and starting with the Psalms is a good place to start. Rabbi Rapport might be teaching a class on prophets based on, she did a short session in the Shavuot Tikkun, and she particularly loves the prophets, so she likes to teach on them. So I'm not sure when that's going to happen. But yeah, it's a lifetime of study. It's for sure a lifetime of study. Don't be overwhelmed, just one step at a time.
So, Rabbi, be conscious that we have another 10 minutes, yeah. And if you want to, most of the group, more people are gathering. If you wanted to do our little schmooze, we can. We can have a
we're going to end that we just had, for those of you who are gathering for the 10 o'clock session, we just had a wonderful first meeting or first class of our Kita Aleph extended extra credit class. How's that? Is that what we're going to call it?
Yes.
Remedial.
I'm not using remedial. I understand it's not a bad word, but what if you feel comfortable, if you want to call it remedial, whatever it is. And
we're the teacher's pets.
Yeah, you're the teacher's pets, right? You just want to spend more time. And we spent the hour studying what is the Bible and what are the books of the Jewish Bible versus the Christian Bible.
Rabbi, what's the how does Proverbs differ?
Let's let other people talk, Chef.
Yeah,
okay.
Right, because Ellen has had her. Ellen, do you still have a question you'd like to ask? Ellen Poster.
Yeah, thanks. So I have this version of the Tanakh, the JPS one, but it's so small that it's really hard for me to read the English and even more difficult to read the Hebrew.
Yeah.
This one.
And the reality, it's 24 books. So for them to get it all into one, that's why you can get a JPS translation just of the 5 books of Moses, and then it's a little bit larger because it's only those 5. And look what Ruth Plave is holding up. JPS has done all 3 in separate volumes. There's the writings, so that's which is a little easier. But yeah, that's just going to be a problem of the size. What can I tell you? I have the same. There's the prophets, second. And is that, Ruth, is that just in English? Or is that English and Hebrew?
Unfortunately, it's just English, and it's still very big.
It's still, but the writing is a little larger.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, what can I tell you? That's the problem.
Sue Rosansky. Sue Rosansky asks, how do conservative, Orthodox, and Reformed services differ with the entire reading or the traditional third?
Yeah, it was just curious.
I would say it's very rare now to find a Reformed synagogue that does a full reading of the Torah, even a full triennial reading. There are some, but I'd say most Reformed synagogues now don't even do a full triennial reading.
Because it's too long?
What?
Because it's too long.
It's too long, and for most of their congregation, it's just boring, and it's not the focus of their services. So it'd be very hard to find a Reform synagogue that does even a full triennial. There are some. Most conservative synagogues do either a triennial or a full reading. More and more do a triennial, I would say. And most Orthodox synagogues will do a full reading.
Yeah.
But you understand that they're going to read very fast, and people have had enough training that honestly, they mostly sit and talk during that time anyway. It's true. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So Saul posted something that I think might be a nice transition here. Saul posts, congratulations to all members of the chorus and the group on yesterday's performance. It was fantastic. Adria is here too. Let's have a round of applause for an amazing, amazing concert yesterday. I said to the rabbi that we did as well as the Sondheim tribute, but we got it off in time, not an hour and a half late.
Yeah, it is. If you've never worked on something like this, it is impossible to describe how difficult it is to do. And the hundreds and hundreds of hours that it takes to record all of those things and to re-record, especially the ensemble ones, like the Adria's with the chamber music and what the chorus had to do. It's just, it's mind-blowing. And then the hundreds of hours that the sound technician has to do to get it all to sync and to make all the voices at the right levels. And that's true for whether the voices are instruments or singers. Yeah, so what everybody think of the concert yesterday? Pretty amazing, huh?
Wow.
And we hit, do you understand, as soon as the pandemic happened, we dropped the goal for the fundraising of the concert from 65,000 to 25,000 because we assumed we would not be able to raise the money. We cut things from the budget. We were just assumed. And I made a bet with Ann that our synagogue would pull through, that we would not be deterred by the fact that people couldn't be there physically. And as of yesterday, we raised $66,000 from the concert, which was just fantastic. Really, really, really fantastic.
And as the board member here, I would say we're still accepting donations for the concert.
Absolutely. And we're working on the recording, and it will go out in the Tuesday email tomorrow, so everybody can watch it. And we use technology that we've never used before, which is better for the transmission of music. So none of the music was transmitted through Zoom, which is what happens usually, and Zoom is terrible for music. There's always lag, and you see Friday nights, for instance, when you even see the chorus recording, it's the pre-recording, it looks a little herky-jerky. But because of this platform, when we use pre-recordings, it's much, much smoother.
I have a question actually about the technology of it, because I'm not sure if this was just us at home or everybody, but ours was like stopping for a half a second at regular intervals every couple of minutes. And
that's just your own internet
that's
receiving
your internet. That's what the part of the problem of technology is. You have what's going out, and then you have whatever we have receiving it. It's why I'm no longer using Wi-Fi. If you use Wi-Fi, that will always happen to some degree, because Wi-Fi is it's a wave that's always. How do you like my technology?
Yeah, I was on Ethernet.
Yeah, so
it's still just the function of how you are receiving the signal that's being transmitted. So, it wasn't broadcast over like a large cable network. Like if you were to receive a pre-record of a live from Lincoln Center thing, or, pre-recorded from Lincoln Center, where it's from the cable company directly into from their service into your television, or your monitor. It's all a function of how, no matter how good the signal, no matter how well, the signal is being sent to you, it's what you have on your end as the receiving the signal that's going to impact, how it looks. So,
I've also, I've called my internet provider and asked for the top level of internet access that I could get. Most of us don't have that because you don't usually need that. And that's made a big difference for me too.
I have
It's awesome.
FiOS and it worked perfectly.
Yeah,
What? You have what?
Great.
Yeah.
FiOS.
and
Right.
I had no problem.
Verizon
because-
FiOS.
So, hi, I don't know if I have the floor. I just wanted to say that there's a recording. That's something we were told through the chat last night. But also, you know, even though we couldn't all be together, this platform has its own delights, which are just remarkable to see Adria with her, like 3 of Adria's playing, you know, playing the different parts, or how the chorus highlighted the section when they started to sing. I mean, it's just not something that we would usually get from a regular concert, and
Yes.
it was so much fun.
You know, with a lot more time, we could have done like a whole big Busby Berkeley thing on the videos, but it's a lot of hours go into taking these individual recordings. And then, I don't know if you play the game Jenga, you know, where you pile up all those wooden pieces and everything has to just be absolutely precise. You make one false move in the editing and things go out of sync very easily. So,
All right.
Well, and what the chorus had to go through that, and also, I mean, if you're a professional musician, it's one thing, and most professional musicians just listen to basically it's a metronome. They don't even have the music in their ears when they're playing their one single part, and it's really crazy how they do it.
We changed that a little bit because everybody hates playing to a click. So the cellist laid her part down first with a click, so we could play to an instrument.
So,
But it's still harrowing. It's a harrowing experience. It's very. It's sorry, Harold.
No, it's fine. If I just,
that you had when you were, there was a statue to your left or right that had like a woman.
Oh, I am actually at a friend's home for a few days. We got clearance and everybody's been tested up the wazoo, so we decided to take advantage. So I think I asked specifically, and she said she purchased it in Greece many years ago. So that's all I can tell you.
That's good enough. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I picked a song that is pretty well known, and I'll just say a brief word of intro about why I picked it. Our neighborhood this past week has been pretty quiet, except for sirens and helicopters. And as many of you are familiar with, there was a call when the curfew started to stand for 9 minutes outside of your building, your home at 8 p.m. And there was a ragtag group of folks that started up on our street corner with signs. And so we joined them, and we were really reminded of standing together with other folks from CBST at the mosque and singing together at the mosque. And so Kristen and I, of course, socially distancing in our own little Jewish dyad, were just singing this song behind our masks because this is the one that we thought of. So I thought to bring it to the class today, and I encourage everyone to sing together across distance, across space from our homes. Olam chesed yibane, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da-da. And you must build this world from love. Yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da-da. And if we build this world from love, yada-da, yada, yada-da-da-da, then God will build this world from love. Yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da-da. Olam chesed yibaneh. 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 Yada-da-da-da, yada-da-da-da.
Thank you so much, Julia. So Menachem Creditor is a rabbi who works for the UJA right now. And he's also, I think I mentioned, doing a Psalms project. And Harold, you and I have to talk about what we're going to submit to him from CBST. But in that light, by the way, he's married to Neshama Karlbach, Shlomo Karlbach's daughter. And Neshama is going to be doing something at CBST in July. We haven't quite figured out. It'll probably be a Friday night. We don't know exactly, but she's going to do something. And just to make sure everybody saw that Harold sent out tonight, the Psalms project that Rabbi Or Rose mentioned is starting tonight. And for the next 18 weeks, each week they're going to study a different Psalm with concerts and dialogues and study sessions 3 different times during the week. So it'll be 3 sessions a week. And tonight they're starting, I think, with Psalm 23 and a concert tonight of some of the great musical voices in the Jewish world. I think exploring different settings for Psalm 23. So Harold sent out that link and it should be very interesting. Of course, we'll get to Psalm 23. Don't worry, we will get there. We're not there yet. And they will be including in their materials Jacob Nemi's piece on Psalm 3 and 4. And I wrote a little overview of our class as an example of how in the midst of this moment, studying Psalms has been so significant for our community. So look out for that. All right, Psalm 7.
We're beginning week 12. I just looked at my calendar. Beginning week 12, and we have nearly 90 people have stuck with this for 12 weeks, which I think is a remarkable tribute to you and to the people in the class and to our community. So
you know, when I looked up, I had to figure out when did we start studying for this little piece that I wrote for Boston Hebrew College. We started on March 16th. The shutdown was March 13th. Friday, March 13th is when the shutdown started. That Monday, we started studying Psalms together. As a group, not everybody was there, of course, but so Psalm 7. You'll notice Psalm 7 is not in some of our famous translators like Mitchell or Norman Fisher. It's a harder Psalm. It's not as accessible, honestly, and it's not one of the classic famous ones, although there are some pieces in it that I think are quite wonderful. So let's look at the first line. Already Jeremy Lawrence has written a Psalm 7. I think somebody else did as well in the, am I remembering correctly?
Yes, you are.
Okay,
Sarah Siegel already gave us one too.
Who did?
Sarah Siegel.
On Psalm 7, fantastic. I'm in awe of you guys. So let's start off with the first word of this psalm. It's a tough one, shigayon. Let me start by saying nobody knows what this means. It's another one of those words. Oh, Lori also posted Psalm 7. Yes, thank you, Lori. So shigayon LeDavid. Most people assume, like Mizmor LeDavid, it's some reference to something musical. We just don't know what. So different people, from Rashi to contemporary commentators, try and understand what shigayon means. And some people just do what Safaria has done here, which is repeat the word. And we see that's one way of saying, you know what, I can't guess. So shigayon of David, asher shar la yud he vav he. Shigayon of David, which was shar, is the word, the same root as the word shira or shir, which means sang. So that's why people assume it's a musical reference. Shigayon the David asher shar, which he sang to Yud He Vav He. We don't know what Shigayon means exactly, but something that David sang to Yud He Vav He, God's name, the four-letter name of God. And there we see the Etnachta. Al Divrei Chush Ben Yemini. Okay, now these are also words we can guess at, we don't really know. So this is something that David sang to Yud He Vav He. Al Divrei, al means on literally, Divrei like the word Dvarim, it usually means about the things or the matters or it could mean words. Seret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments. So these are the things that David sang to Yud He Vav He. Here it's translated concerning Chush. Again, not translated. Is Chush a proper noun? Could be a name. Ben Yemini, the Ben is son of, or Yemini is a word for Benjamin, or other people translate it a little differently. The word from the right, Benjamin can mean my right hand person. So let's look at different translations now that I've just gone through this whole thing. Do other people have translations in front of you? How does your translation translate Shigayon? Anybody have any other translations for Shigayon?
Put it in chat. I will be glad to call it out. Let's see. So Ira says, is this the only psalm in which Shigayon appears?
I'm not sure. I have to think. I'd have to look it up. That's a great question. It's not obviously anywhere near as common as Mizmor, so I'm not sure. Let me see if my commentary says.
Paul Zalkin says his is just Shigayon. Betsy Immersheim says in her translations by Rabbi Shachter Shalomi, he translated spared the life of King Saul hiding in a cave, which I think
so that's not a translation. That's trying to figure out what the historical context is. And that's very common for the commentators to imagine where David was, because they, of course, will say every psalm was written by David himself. So they try to figure out, that's just a guess, obviously, and I don't think it was probably written by David, but that's the...
Ora says, is Shigayon related to Mishagaya?
Excellent. Who said that?
Ora Ezrahi.
Okay, so Ora, there you are. So Ora knows some Hebrew, and some people think it does. And that's why you'll see, which means crazy or in upheaval, like Meshugana, people know that word, right? So does it relate to the original Hebrew? And that's why you'll see some translations of this meaning it's and music people, you'll tell me what it is now. I've just lost it in my head. It's a musical notation for something to be sung, with a lot of energy or a little crazy, or some people say passionately. Like it's not the type of song, it's a notation to sing this with a lot of energy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's and that's based on what Ora is saying, that it has some sound to a Hebrew ear is a little crazy, a little energetic, a little. So nobody knows Ora, but that's excellent, and others have thought about that. And Richard Levy, for instance, translates this as, based on what Ora just said, a passionate song by David, which he sung to Adonai, because he's trying to play with what could the word itself mean and have some reference. So Richard Levy says...
Randy Axelrod says, Alter says maybe it's a rhapsody. Megan Cosi says hers has a psalm about going astray by David. Song of going, Pamela Green, but that may be Pamela Greenberg, who says a psalm about going astray. JPS uses Shigayon. Salman Shalomi Schechter says singing meditation. Lori Kropman says she has, in some Christian translations, it's wild, mournful ode. Now, and then to answer the question, is it used otherwhere, Ira? No, it is used twice in the Hebrew Bible, once here and once in Habakkuk verse 3:1, which I am not going to refer to right now. But in Psalms, this is the only Psalm that uses that word, hapax legomena. So Ira says maybe it could be translated as con brio or appassionata as musical.
There you go. So Alter says, and let me bring this out since we're looking at this particular word. Alter says, like so many of the technical terms in Psalms, it's unclear what it means because the probable verbal root of this noun suggests emotional excess. It might mean something as rhapsody, although that's not necessarily borne out by the body of the poem. So again, but you're getting this is and it's a source of a lot of attention, what shigayon means. Sorrowful song.
In the Habakkuk, which is the only other time it appears, it's Tehillah le Habakkuk, a praise song of Habakkuk, Hanivi, the prophet, al Shigyonot. So in Habakkuk, it's plural as Shigyonot, which might mean an instrument. So hard to figure it out.
So likewise, the whole reference to Kush is really very, very hard to know, and nobody has total clarity. Richard Levy has a very interesting comment on this, and he says that Kush might refer to Kish, who was the father of Saul, who was from the tribe of Benjamin. But again, nobody knows. This is one of those, you're not going to be able to have a final, clear solution to this. So, and what Richard Levy does to resolve this is listen to this. He's a passionate song by David, which he sang to Adonai about the words of Cush of Benjamin. Okay, we don't know. Quiche, Donna Gray says, quiche is always a good thing. So bet. You'll notice a lot the first line of many Psalms, hard to know whether it's a superscription or whether it's part of the poem itself. And you're getting a sense of that by looking at all of these. Okay, Psalm.
Yael makes the note, Cush can be Africa also in biblical geography, where Ethiopian Jews come from, Cush. And Marcia Melnick says, and we will agree with you, Marcia, I find it hard to pay attention to the rabbi, multiple translations on my desk, and toggling back to the chat, am I alone? No, you are not alone, Marcia. This is very complicated to juggle everything. So let's go back to the text, Rabbi.
Yes, we're going back to verse 2.
Okay.
Again, Yud Hey Vav Hey. Yud Hey Vav Hey starts verse 2, and remember, always pay attention to when Yud Hey, God's name, begins a verse. That is not normal biblical Hebrew, so it's making an emphasis. Yud Hey Vav Hey Elohai Becha Chasiti. Yud Hey Vav Hey Elohai, my God. So now we've increased the reference Yud Hey Vav Hey. In you, Becha, in you, Chasiti. I am seeking, I want refuge, I am looking for refuge. And there is the etnach, so the semicolon. Hoshi Eini, again, the word which we encounter a lot. Hoshi Eini, save me, deliver me. Mikol Rodfai, from all who pursue me. Rodef is a pursuer. Rodef Shalom, people know synagogue's name, Rodef Shalom. You know the joke, every synagogue that breaks off from another synagogue always puts Shalom in their title. So Rodef Shalom broke off from another synagogue. They all did, but Rodef Shalom. Rodef is a pursuer. So from all who pursue me, V'hatzileni, save me. So notice in this verse, there are 3 different words for refuge. Saving me, Hoshieni, save me, deliver me, and save me. So there's a real sense of needing rescue. 3, pen, lest, yitroph. Yitroph is to, litroph is to tear. Aryeh. Now, this is the first time I think we've encountered an animal, right, in the Psalms. Is this our first animal? We'll find animals. The natural world appears in many different ways in the Psalms, and we'll find different animals, and that's a very wonderful and interesting subject. So like a lion, Aryeh is a lion. Ari in Hebrew, Aryeh, people know a lot of Aryehs as a Hebrew name, is a lion. Ken like a lion, so Yitroph Nafshi is the phrase, means tear. Remember, nefesh doesn't just mean soul, tear my whole body, myself apart. Another example of how nefesh in biblical Hebrew does not only mean soul, which it often only means in rabbinic Hebrew and in modern Hebrew. Porek ve'ein matzil. And I'll be in pieces, ve'ein matzil. Now the verse before, hatzileni, is the same verb as matzil. So in verse 2, the psalmist is saying, save me, deliver me, I'm looking for help, I'm looking for refuge. And the last word, v'hatzileni, save me. And then this verse is the contrast verse. Because if I am not saved, what will happen? Like a lion, I will be ripped apart. Ve'ein matzil, and there will be no saving. 4, Yud He Vav He Elohai, repeating verse 2. We see that repetition. Going back to beseeching. Im asiti zot. Now, this is a really interesting and goes back a little bit to Psalm 6. We're not all innocent. We don't deserve to be saved or receive compassion or refuge because necessarily we're innocent. This is one of the powers of the Psalms, is not saying, God, I deserve to be well treated because I'm not as bad as my neighbor. Yud He Vav He, Hashem Elohai, Im asiti zot, if I have done this, we don't know what this is, but if I have done this, Im asiti zot, if I have done this, Im yesh avel bechapai, if there is, avel is another word for transgression, if I have, or wrongdoing, bechapai, in the palms of my chapai are the, I think in modern Hebrew too, right? My modern Hebrew speakers are the palms. Is that right?
I can't see chat. Yael? Weigh
Yes.
in here.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's so this is the, so if my hands, if in the palm, in other words, but this is not, so the chapayim are the palms. Wow, this is really saying, okay, im gamalti, so verse 5, Sholmi ra, if I like this, if I have dealt evil, gamalti ra, here's the word ra, which we encountered in earlier Psalms, one of the words for bad or ra, the haltza, so rai rekam, I who rescued my foe without reward. So rai are foes, again, are they internal, are they external? That's always open to translation. Rekam means empty. So if I did it without and didn't get anything back. 6. Okay, if I've done this, then yerdof oyev. So here's the word for rodef, to pursue. Oyev. So now this is standard biblical Hebrew, that the verb becomes first. So now we have a standard syntax. My enemy should pursue me, but in Hebrew it will read, pursue enemy nafshi, me, or my soul, myself. So you see those three, and there's that, which I like very much, what Jacob Nimi taught us about the psik, the line between oyev and nafshi, means we kind of pause. So yerdof oyev, so my enemy pursues, pause, nafshi, for emphasis. With that cantillation mark, we have a lot of emphasis. V'yaseg V'yirmos la'aretz chayai. Wow, this is, so if I have done all these bad things from the first, this might happen. That then with repetition, my life will be trampled into the ground. Et nachta, uchvodi, psik, pause, and chvodi, remember, that means my honor, but it can also mean my presence. And it can also mean God's presence as a way to refer to myself. Le'afar. Afar means to dust. We sing this the word afar is very prominent in the Unatana Tokef when we talk about from dust to dust. Le'afar yashken. Lay my body, or uchvodi, my honor, myself, into dust. Yashken. Yashken is to lie down like mishkan, or to live, or to be. And here we have Selah again. What does Selah mean? We don't know. Is it a musical reference? Is it a pause? We don't know. Verse 7. Kuma. Now we've gone into this. What could possibly happen to me that maybe I deserve? Maybe all of these things that I've just listed, I deserve. And again, enemy can be external or internal, but we'll keep looking at that. Kuma, we have this word in many different places. Get up. Kuma, lakum is to get up. Kuma, get up, Yud-Hey Vav-Hey. Arise, please. Watch what's happening. Psik, a big pause. Be'apecha, we had this before, that nose or nostril. Af is a nose. Be'apecha, in your nose or your nostril, which also can mean anger because our nostrils flare up in anger. So it can be used in biblical Hebrew as a reference to anger. Rise up, be'apecha, hunaseh be'avrot tzorarai. Assert yourself against the fury of my foes. So Kuma Hashem is one phrase. Be'apecha, assert yourself. Be'avrot tzorai. Tzorai, again, we saw that word before in verse 4. For enemies or foes, again, can be external or internal. Ve'ura elai mishpat sivita. Ura, bestir. We have this shoresh in Lecha Dodi, hit orari. The ayin vav resh or ayin yud resh is probably the shoresh. Hitori means to get up, but not just get up. It's another verse for bestir. There we go. There's the English word bestir yourself. Elai, on my behalf. Mishpat. Mishpat is a law or a judgment. Mishpat. Tzivita. Tzivita, you have ordered. Mitzvah is from the same word as tzvita, which is a commandment or an order. Tzvita, you have ordered this judgment. 8. Va'adat le'umim. Adat is a gathering, or a da is a tribe or a grouping. Le'umim. Tisovevecha. Histovev means to gather, or to, yes, Yael wrote Vaad, right? Like Vaadat is a committee. We have a Vaad Tefillah at CBST, which is our group that plans services. Vaadat, and a Vaad is a committee, a regular committee in the Knesset or in any group. Lehistovev means to circle round or to something like that. Tisovevcha. Ve'aleha lamrom shuva. So that you see where the etnachta is, the cause there. So let the gathering of people surround you. With you, aleha, up above, lamrom shuva. With you enthroned. I don't know about the enthroned part, but with you above, on high, lamrot on high, lamrom on high. Sivivon, right, Ira? Sivivon is for a dreidel because it turns around. Same shoresh. All right, we're just going to get through a few. This is a long psalm, so we're going to get through a bunch today of this overview. We're going to try and get through it as an overview. What are we up to? 9?
9.
Or 8? 9.
9.
Yud He Vav He Yadin Amim. Yadin is ladin, is like din is judgment or law. A dayan, Moshe Dayan. Everybody knows Moshe Dayan. His last name meant judge. Dayan is a judge. Yud He Vav He, judges amim. Remember, in biblical Hebrew, we have a couple of different words for people. Amim, goyim, which we know in modern, the way Jews speak in it, goyim isn't necessarily a positive word. In biblical Hebrew, goyim just means peoples. And here's amim, the other word for peoples. Shafteni, we just saw that word for to judge with, so Yud He Vav He, judges amim. Shavteni Yud He Vav He. That means kind of with laws or with justice. Yud He Vav He at Nachta. Now here we have the Shoresh Tzadi Daled Kuf. You see that, which is the same word for tzedakah or a tzaddik, a righteous person, or to give tzedakah. That's why tzedakah doesn't mean charity. It means the right thing to do, justice, righteousness. Uchtumi alai. Tum or tam means simple or blameless on me. So Yud He Vav He judges the people. Make me, vindicate me, Yud He Vav He, for righteousness and blamelessness that are mine. So I'm willing to own up to the things I've done wrong, but please, not everything is my responsibility. There are some things I've done right, so to speak. How's everybody doing? Is this speed okay to try and cover some ground?
Too fast.
Too fast?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to cover some ground. I'm going to come back, but I know it's a little fast.
Too fast.
Too fast. Okay.
It's an overview.
What? Yeah, I'm trying to do an overview because it is a long psalm. Let me do a couple more and then I'll go back, okay? I want to finish a section of this, okay? Yigmar na ra rishaim utechonen tzadik uvochen libot uchliot Elohim tzadik. Now look in this verse, how many times we see the word for tzadik or tzadik, we see twice. Let the evil, yigmar na ra rishaim, 2 words for evil. Gemar is to finish or to end. Let the evil of evil come to an end. Tzadik uvochen libot uchlayot Elohim tzadik. But establish that which is right. Uvochen, he who probes. Bochen is to probe. Libot, the hearts. Uchlayot. Chlayot are, I think they're kidneys. And actually, is that, are they kidneys?
Kidneys, yes.
So it's often in biblical Hebrew that kidneys are the source of consciousness for some reason. I don't know why. But you see that as I've referred to other things, that other body parts are the source of, so it doesn't literally mean kidneys, but it's referring to the conscience. Yud He Vav He is tzaddik. Okay, so those are the first 10 verses. Let's stop there and let's go back. That's an overview. It is a little bit of more of a dense verse. We see some phrases that are very interesting and words that get repeated. First of all, Ra and Rasha, evil, different words for evil and bad. And Tzaddik and righteousness, which we see over and over again. So let's go back to verse 2.
Okay.
So any comments or questions before we start?
There are many things here.
Okay.
Or, as Rocky says, were there actually lions in the Holy Land in the time of David? Or was this an analogy?
Well, it's interesting because the symbol of David is a lion, right? Judah, think of the lions of Judah. And in fact, at CBST, we have the gay version where we have the 2 female lions and the 2 male lions together. Because lions themselves are the symbol of David and of Judah, which is the southern kingdom. Now, were there actually lions there? Wow, that I have never thought about.
Peter Klein says lions were prevalent throughout the Near East and Southern Europe until the needs of the Romans required more and more animals for the Colosseum and circus combats and caused the lions to disappear from these regions. And I know that the Pharaoh would often go out in his chariot to slay the lion. And the combat between king and lion, I think, is a metaphor many times here.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I have never thought about that before. That, I use I'm so familiar with lion as the, and it is really the image of David's, and therefore this, remember I told you there were two kingdoms after David and Solomon was the United Kingdom for about, 70 years maybe. And then for the rest of history, there was no unification among the Jewish people until 1948 and the establishment of the State of Israel, which hasn't been such a unified thing either. But after King David and Solomon, the kingdoms divided, and the southern kingdom is known as Judah, the northern kingdom is Samaria, and the lion is the symbol of David and the southern kingdom. That's why lions are one of the symbols of the Jewish people. So, but I never in my life have thought about were there actually lions there. So thank you, Peter. And that makes sense because then when Rome conquered that region, hundreds of thousands of Jews were forced to walk, by the way, in chains from Jerusalem to Rome. And so it makes sense that they got the lions there too. Wow, never thought about it.
It's kind of amazing that all through the end of the Roman era, there were still lions in Southern Europe. And so you see historic combats in Greek mythology and in Roman mythology, but they really were there and terrifying and present until the Romans hunted them down for use in the Colosseum and brought extinction to that whole area. So,
we believe that many Jews were actually, the slaves were actually involved in the building of the Colosseum. That's when the Colosseum was built, and the financial ransacking of Jerusalem helped to provide the financial resources for the building of the Colosseum. And we know from the Arch of Titus that if you've been in Rome, weren't you there right before the coronavirus? In the Arch of Titus, or Titus in Hebrew, you can see the menorah that was carried from Jerusalem to Rome that we believe is in the basement of the Vatican.
It is.
That's my theory.
So wait,
Rabbi Daniel in the lion's den.
Shep, you can't just jump in.
Please don't jump in because so we have a number of notes about kidneys. Kidneys purify, they remove waste.
I've never thought about that either.
Kidneys are the source of qi in Chinese medicine. Ancient Egyptians.
What does that mean? Hold on. Tell me what qi in Chinese medicine means.
Cindy, tell us about qi.
Well, that's like the source of life. It's like the your energy. The kidneys is where that energy that you're born with lives, and when that draws down, no more qi in the kidneys, you die.
That's amazing. Yeah, Elle, in modern Hebrew, does chlayot mean anything besides kidneys? So it doesn't have any
kidneys.
What?
It is just kidneys.
Yeah, so it doesn't have any of this biblical kind of conscience and interest. Wow, so it's so interesting that these two ancient traditions understand kidneys to have something more than just a physical. Wow, that's fascinating.
The Greeks also, heart, kidneys, lungs were used as centers of emotion. They had a different understanding. Adria, you've had your hand up for a while.
No, just going back to words for which we don't know, have a translation or truly know what they mean. Have there been instances where this has just been totally attributed to not being to really discern the way the source looks, that the writing itself is confusing?
No, the word is pretty clear. It isn't, and it's not there are situations where what you're describing exists, where there's multiple references and we don't know if it was a scribal error. It's a pretty clear, the form of the word is recognizable. It's not an unusual shape of a word. It's not, there's nothing unusual about it, except we just don't understand it. It's, again, we just have to think about words that we use all the time that we can't imagine people not knowing what they mean, but if it hasn't been used for 2,000 years, and it's in this category of rarely. So there is a concordance to the Bible that's essential to studying biblical Hebrew, which is called the BDB, Brown Driver Briggs, which is I don't have my volume here at home. It's in my office at CBST, but it is available online now, of course, as everything is. So I've been using it actually as we're studying the Psalms. And this isn't, I think it was done originally by Christians in the 19th century, the Brown Drivers Briggs, there it is. And imagine doing this without computers. I mean, this is what, right? So what these scholars did, hold it right there, Harold, don't move it. So what they did is that they look at every single word in the Bible, and then they give you the reference to every other time it is used, so that you could, because the only way to really try and do the work we're doing a little bit with the shortcuts, and this is when I studied biblical Hebrew in rabbinical school, that's what we're required to do. You come across a word you don't know, you have to go to every single reference, read that verse, read that context. Does that help you understand what it means? Because there is no other way to translate an ancient text. There's no shortcut really, except other people have done that work for you. But, so what Brown Drivers Brown, we call it BDB because it's a lot easier in saying, those are the three authors.
Not BDS.
Not BDS, BDB, Brown Driver Briggs. What they've done is then, and what you do is that they look at every root, then there's another book that looks at every single root and sees the ways that root has been used. Because the way modern Hebrew uses roots is not necessarily the same way that biblical Hebrew uses roots. Modern Hebrew is very influenced by European languages and honestly now by English. And roots are manipulated in ways that a biblical author would not understand. But there are similarities still. It's not that it's completely foreign, but it's not the same, exactly the same. So that's why when we say shigayon sounds Hebrew, right? Yeah, it sounds like it should be totally understandable. There's nothing weird about it except we don't really know what it means. It's like if I said the word shoe to people in 2,000 years who are English scholars, but they never encountered the word shoe before, unless somebody was using it in a way that made it really clear, it's no way to know. So shigayon looks, that's why, and there are some roots in those letters like crazy or excited or that's why, what's his name? Levy translates as passionate, and that's why I think what Ira said, con brio, maybe it's you sing this psalm should be sung with this energy. We don't know, but it's fun to play with it. But BDB exists, by the way, I should tell you, this is more than anybody who doesn't already have some Hebrew background would want to know. There's actually an app now, of course, where somebody has taken a picture, I think, of every entry in BDB. But that's when you study biblical Hebrew at the next level after this class, which if you want, after we finish the Psalms, I'll be happy to do that. You start to look at every single root and you have to drill down to every other time it's been used. And even then, so as Harold said, the word is hapex legomenon, which means a word that's only used once in the entire Bible. We're going to be at a loss.
So Rabbi, I'm conscious of the time, and since many of us have been on since 9 this morning with our extended session, there have been some wonderful references that have been posted in the chat. If people can look through the chat, or please feel free, I think just about everybody here is also on our Facebook group, to go to Facebook group. If there's an essay or there's a book or there's a video or there's a picture that you'd like us to see, please put it there, and everybody has been looking at them. We'll be doing the extended session every Monday at 9. Is that correct, Rabbi?
Yes, unless people stop showing up, but I'll be there.
All right. And is there anything else that this group should know about that's going on in the next couple of days in the life of the synagogue?
Well, I want to say that we've made a change for this coming Friday night service, which is typically the second Friday night of every Pride Month. I give a special drush, but given the world we're in, this Friday night, we are going to be celebrating and learning from LGBTQ Jews of color. And this is going to be a very special service, and 3 members of our community who are Jews of color are going to speak to us from their lived experiences. And that's what our Shabbat is going to be this Friday night. Given what's going on in the world, that seems to be an appropriate thing to be doing. And again, tonight, the Psalms project is beginning for the Hebrew College, which looks very interesting. Anything else that people need to share with each other? And yes, the recording of yesterday's concert, I said it earlier, but not everyone was on, will go out in tomorrow's email. So look for the e-news tomorrow, and we'll have a link that you can watch it again and again and again tomorrow. So, and thank you who came to the Zoom schmooze afterwards yesterday. That I thought was really, really interesting too.
So we go back to have Julia sing us out.
And I'll say that Allison mentioned in the chat that this was a song that she and others, as part of the Jews for Dreamers, sing as they were getting arrested in DC during the protest there. And when I was reading about this song, just to read a little bit more about it, it's been used in all kinds of vigils, including the one for Tree of Life Synagogue after the shooting there. It was sung at the gates of Auschwitz by Neshama Karlbach. It's been sung at ICE detention center rallies. And one thing I didn't know is that the Rabbi Creditor wrote it for his baby daughter right after the attacks of 9/11. That's the origin.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
Wow.
Olam chesed yibane, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai. 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 I will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai. And you must build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai, then God will build this world from love, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai, yadadai, dai, dai, yadadadadai.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Julia. Thank you, everyone. I feel so deeply, deeply grateful and blessed. Thank you. This is week what, Harold?
12.
We are starting week 12 of studying together. Fantastic. All right, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.